Okay, so this week's project, I figured I would start in the room we're going to end up in. So this week I want to build a piece of furniture, but I want to do it out of scrap wood. So I want to make it, if not inexpensive, free, or at least I'm going to try. So this is what I have in mind. This is my spare or guest bedroom, and it's missing a headboard. That sure would be nice. I've had some guests here recently, and it would be nice to have a headboard in there. So we're going to make it out of scrap wood. So 2x4s, pallet wood, Cull wood. We'll go over what those are, kind of pros and cons. But I think we should get going. So let's head out to the workshop, and I'll kind of show you what I collected and kind of why I picked those things. All right, so got from the bedroom out to the workshop. So basically, I want to show you the three sources of scrap wood that I'm talking about, and how we can make this so inexpensively or hopefully for free. So three sources. Let me show you real quick. So if you recall this workbench I built, I decided to keep the lower section open for my leftover wood. So I've got 2x4s in there, 1x4, some boards, some OSB. That's where all my leftover lumber goes from projects. So some are pretty long, some are short. So as far as sources go, that's awesome. You already paid for it and it's not doing anything, so you can put it to good use and make something else with it. Second one, let's talk about pallet wood. So people have used that for the last few years for a lot of stuff, and they make some really cool things. So let's talk some pluses and minuses. All right, pros and cons of pallet wood. One is it's free. That is the biggest one. It is free. The other thing is you're going to use it for a lot of times. You'll find these in the dumpster and stuff like that. So you're using something that would have been thrown away or thrown in the landfill, so kind of eco-friendly. The other thing is it's interesting. It's got some texture to it. It's got some color to it. Kind of looks like, you know, people use it for like barn wood or kind of a rustic kind of material. So those are some definite positives for pallet wood. Negatives are you got to go find it. You got to haul it home, and it's a lot of work to get to where you can use the wood. So a lot of times, you know, you'll break the board. You know, here's a nice board that I'd like to use. We'll see if we can get it off in one piece. A lot of times these nails and stuff will hold on for dear life and snap the wood because it's pretty brittle, pretty dry, and difficult to get a lot of these boards off in one piece. So you'll see that I stepped on that one in the truck and it just snapped. So it's in a lot of pieces right now. So yeah, pluses and minuses with that stuff. The third thing, some of you may not be aware of what it is, but it's called Cull lumber or Cull wood. You go to your lumber yard or your box stores and stuff, you'll see one of the carts off to the side and it'll say discount lumber. You look at it and you go, oh my gosh, who would ever want that? Well, you want it because it's like 50% or 75% off. So, and this is kind of what Cull lumber is. People have sorted through it and they look at it, and it's either got a twist or a bend or it's warped or cupped or something like that. And they go, nah, this isn't usable for anything. We can't sell it for full price. So they throw it in the Cull lumber pile and discount it 50, 75% or whatever. So I picked some up and it kind of comes to me in two categories. One is twisted and warped and the other one is broken. So you'll have a big split or a crack or a chunk's broken off of it. So those two things are kind of what we've got going. So this guy here at the end, it's a good board. It's nice and straight until you get about to the last 2 feet. So I will cut it off there and I'll have about, 6 feet of a good board. Here's a good example of broken and why this one is still usable. So it's broken about inch and a half in. So I will just run this through the table saw and cut that broken inch and a half off, and then I'll have a thinner board, which will be a little more interest in with the project we're making. So I don't want everything nice and clean and even on the headboard. And I'll kind of show you what we're doing with the chevron pattern. Or maybe I'll just show you the final thing up front. Maybe I already did that, so you know what it's going to look like. So we'll have different widths of boards and stuff just for interest and texture and that kind of stuff. So those are the three different types of wood scrap we're looking at. So let's see what we can put together and how cheap we can do it. Let's get to prepping wood. The pallet wood's going to take a while. The Cull wood, cut at the length, get rid of the knots and the broken stuff. So. Okay, so update time. So let me show you where I am. I'm tearing down this pallet, and this is kind of one of the downsides of pallet wood. It just takes so much time to get usable wood out of it. So I think this is what I'm going to keep. So this is the stuff out of the pallet. So we've got some boards there, some planks, this really long pallet. This is really what I wanted it for, is these really long 1x4s basically. And then I got one 2x4 out of there. That's 48 inches, which for my frame would be awesome. And then I've got 2 and 2 2x4s that are 10 feet long. I'm not going to use these. Now, if we're going to make this a free thing, you take the time and effort, you pull all the nails out of here, and there's probably 6 per board, 6 for every one of those. So that would take a lot of time and energy. I have extra 2x4s, so I'm just going to use those and throw these in the scrap pile. So I can use these for other projects if I want, but for now, nope. And then that's a pile of scrap. So one of the other negatives is, when you're tearing these apart, there's some hazards there. As you see all the nails sticking up, so be careful. You're throwing those to the side somewhere, and you're not going to step on them. The other thing I do is have some specific tools for tearing down pallets. So you saw me, I cut each end of the pallet, and then I rock it back and forth to pull the middle out. So I just have some nail holes in the middle. The ends are so destroyed with nails that they're not very strong anymore. So cheap saw, I bought it for like $8 at the salvage store, threw a crappy blade on it. And if you saw, I hit a nail, and that's why I have a crappy blade on it. So I just need to chop the wood off. I'm not really worried about square and all that kind of stuff. So crappy saw. Sawzall is also your friend for cutting nails and everything. So if you do want to keep a board, you just cut the nails off there, and you have less damage. So I think I have salvaged what I want off of the pallets. So tons of energy, tons of time, but it is free. Okay, I think we're at the point where the cull wood and the pallet wood is where it's usable. So that is the pile right there. We're going for all free. That's all free. The cull wood was inexpensive, but the pallet wood was all free. Those 1x4s came off that really big pallet. If I'd be using the 2x4s, it's going to take some time, but I would harvest those off the pallet as well. So for sake of time, I'm going to use scrap wood that I already have. So I've got some 2x4s down there, and I've got some 1x4s up here. So we're going to make a box out of this and put it together with pocket screws, and then we're going to surround that little frame with a 2x4 upright on each side, and then one across the top for like a top shelf to box it all in. It'll make sense as we go along. So let's make this little frame, and we'll go from there. Okay, so here's where we're at after cutting up all the stock. This is the frame we're going to make, and this is what our chevron pattern is going to be on. So that's the middle of the bed, and then we're going to get angles here and then angles on the other side. So we're going to connect all these with pocket holes. So I've gone through and marked everything. Everything is the correct size, but I have marked, B for bottom with an underline under it, so I know which is the top and the bottom of the bottom. Top with a line under it, top, bottom. And then I've done 1, 2, 3 with lines under them, so I know which orientation they have. And then I put little tick marks on where I need to put pocket holes. So pocket holes here will screw into that board. These pocket holes will go into the uprights for the bed frame, or sorry, for the headboard. So this is the frame that we're putting all the decorative stuff on at the headboard part, but then we're gonna have 2x4s for a leg here a leg there and a 2x4 going across the top for like a shelf ledge kind of thing. And I think that'll make it look pretty nice. So, so right now we're gonna drill some pocket holes for these. We've got them all laid out so I don't make boo-boos like I tend to do. So get out the pocket hole jig and make some pocket holes. I'm gonna do a lot of those. I won't bore you with it. Okay, so we got all our pocket holes drilled. So the next step is let's put the thing together. So we got a bunch of pocket hole screws. Let's square everything up and then clamp everything down. Now do those together, but those are important because you get this thing out of whack and you're not getting it straightened out again once it's screwed together. So however you want to do it, I got a couple different squares. So we squared up the wood and I clamped it to the table. So this is the next step in the process. So I found center of the headboard. So we drew a line there, and that's going to be our reference point for all of our chevron patterns going off. So this is my first board. The only thing you need to keep in mind, if you want them basically bookcased or symmetrical when you're cutting them, you can't just cut the board at a 45 and do that. You're going to have to cut basically a triangle out of it and have them come down. That way the faces are going to look. Otherwise, you're going to end up having something like that. And they go, well, that's different than this. These boards happen to be cupped. So this one is going this way, which I like. This one is going this way, which is not going to be very stable pinning it in. So just be aware of those few things. And this is our first one. So I'm going to go, I got all that scrap and everything. I'm going to go through and cut 45s and kind of match these up and see what I can get to fit in here. Then I'll kind of show you. And I'm going to leave them all long because we'll trim these later. So the big thing is match up the 45s, make sure that they fit, and I'm going to leave them all long. We can trim them down a little bit later because we're going to put a trim piece around here to cover up all our errors. All right, so this is what I came up with. I think it's a good mix of some of those cedar planks and then some of the scrap wood from the pallets. It's a good mix. So we got some dark, dirty ones in there. Everything's down the center. I left everything long. So the next step is going to be in here is to come in and custom fit everything. So I'm going to work off. This is the one I'm going to work off of because it has that nice point right at the top of our headboard. So I'm going to make sure that, you know, that gap is super tight. It's exactly a 90-degree angle. So everything's cut at 45s. And then everything else should fit well. I just kind of threw these in here so you can tell if you're not careful, you can get off a little bit. And if you're off on one like that, the next one's going to be off and it's just going to compound itself by the time you get to the bottom of your board. So we're going to fit one at a time. And it's long. So this is the worst one because I've got to cut it on this side and I've got to cut the bottom. So probably start with the side, cut that, make sure it fits in, and then we'll cut it the length and make sure that it ends. If you want this rustic, you can just leave it like that and put it up, clear coat it, whatever you want. But I think I'm going to sand it a little bit, get some of the roughness out of it. So you've got the color texture look that we want, but not so much texture or something that's going to get caught on it, because it is going to go in a bedroom. And I think I want to clean it up a little bit, maybe stain it so that this new stuff doesn't look so new anymore. And then clear coat it so it's easy to the touch. So let me work on these for a while though, and we'll get them fitted, and then we'll go on from there. Okay, so this is where we are. I got our first boards fitted, so the angle was just fine off the chop saw. I came down here. Remember, it overlapped, so I drew a line, or put a mark on that board, and then drew a line where I needed to cut it. Good thing I double checked, because I put the line the wrong way, so that would have ruined my whole project. But double checked it, got that one cut, and then I went back after that was cut and fit, because it was still long, and then just scored the other side of it with a pencil, and then just flipped it over and cut it on the saw. So the other thing too is, this is new wood, that's old wood. We're not going to see the frame behind it, but you know, our top of the bed's there. I think I'm going to sand everything really quick. Not so concerned about the marks and stuff, but you know, who wants to see premium stud on their headboard? You know, I don't know. I guess unless you are one, I guess. But we're going to sand all this. I'm going to sand all of the planks and everything. We're going to take some of the color out of those, but I want to keep the color, but take some of the roughness off of it. So I think I'm going to spend some time sanding up this whole project. That way I can just attach these and go and be done. And then we can stain and clear coat or whatever we want to do at the end. So I'm going to take a pause right now and sand everything. Not going to make you watch because it's boring time. So let's do that, and then we'll get back to the project. All right, we've started the fun part. So this is where we're got all the sanding done. We just need to fit the planks in the headboard, and I'm going to glue and nail them in. So got the first one in, fit pretty good. Threw a little glue behind the board where it touches, and threw a few nails in there, a few more at the bottom, because you're not going to see them as much. So undetermined whether I'm going to fill those or not. Depends on how rustic I want this to look, or how when we get it all together. So first one is in. All those to go. Let's get to it. Okay, I've been busy while you weren't looking. So see, hyperlapse of, so we've got everything glued and nailed down. So let me show you. I also, there was some edges that didn't match up really well, and I knew I was going to do some trim anyway. So I ripped down a 2x4. So this is the width of a 2x4. It's about a 1/4 inch thick that I use for my trim. And then I just nailed it around the perimeter. Now with the pallet wood and this mismatched wood and stuff we're using, it's not the same width and everything. So there's gaps here and there. And then the trim is covering the cut edge, but this is a shorter piece and this is a fatter piece, or thinner piece, fatter piece. So the trim kind of does this along the side. If this is rustic, I'm good with it. If you want something a little bit finer, then we're not using pallet wood. We're using some kind of just stock and just have it nice and clean and everything. So once I got all those in, then I went back and threw some putty. You see it's pink, and when it's dry, it turns white. So threw some putty over all the nail holes. Not those nail holes, the nail holes I made. So up the seam and everything. So I'm gonna let that dry. We're gonna do a quick sanding over it, blow everything off, and then I've got a stain. We're gonna kind of see if we can get that whole look a little more cohesive looking, and then we're gonna clear coat it. So that's kind of what's next. Well, we got some color on it, and I think it turned out pretty good. Not what I was going for. I was kind of trying to make it a little more homogeneous tan to match some other furniture in the room, but this is what we got. I know you just watched me put it on there, but I like it. So it made some of the different boards pop a different color, pulled some red out of these boards, made our 2x4s look a little less boring. So definitely pulled some red out of those. So overall, I think it turned out pretty good. We've got to give it at least a couple hours before we top coat it. So it's kind of getting late in the day. So maybe I'll let it sit a couple hours, have some dinner, and throw some clear coat on it afterwards. That way we should be good to install it tomorrow, depending on how things go. But yeah, then we'll talk about the project and everything. All right, it's the next day. I was able to dig through my piles of finishes and stuff and find something I could put on relatively quickly after staining something. So I was able to get it done late last night. It is the next day. It's all dry and ready to install, other than I need to drill some holes so we can mount it to the bed frame. But before we do that, let's talk about the project, because we set out to make a bed, a headboard for my queen size bed in the guest room for free. So were we able to do that? Let's find out. So there is the finished project. And let's kind of go over some stuff real quick. So 2x4s, remember that really big pallet I had long 2x4s, and that's kind of why I grabbed that one. So if we spent the time to harvest those would be free. These were left over from other projects, so sitting in the workshop, so we'll say free. Remember the backing here were 1x4. Now that big pallet had 2 long strips of 1x4. I could have cut those down and used them. I opted not to because I wanted to make sure that it was super square, so I actually bought some of those for pretty cheap. They're like, a couple bucks a piece for 8-foot section. So I just spent some money on there, but you could have done it for free. And then lastly, the trim and then all this decorative wood here, those are off of pallets and everything. So definitely for free there. Some of it's Cull wood I spent a couple bucks on, but definitely if you spent the time and dug through and got enough pallets, that could all be free. The screws that we used to connect the frame together, those were left over from another project. The stain I used, left over from another project. The finish as well. And then the bolts I'm going to use to mount this thing to the bed frame, well, I got a ton of spare bolts from leftover projects and whatever else. So got a bunch of those. So I'm going to say check mark, yes, you can definitely make this for free. I am going to say be conscious of what you're building and how you're building it. So that large pallet, the 2x4s were long and straight. They didn't have twists or warps, but it was going to take me a while to pull them apart. So it would have had nail holes in it and stuff like that. So rustic look fine, but we had the parts to do it. I had spare 2x4s that I bought for other projects that were left over, so I used those. The backing for this, Cull wood and pallet wood is not the straightest stuff in the world, so the frame, I would say, make the frame out of good wood. This is just decoration on top of the pallet wood, so I would say pallets for that. The rest of it, leftover wood, scrap wood from other projects, buy the wood, that kind of thing. I think you'll be happier with the outcome of the project. And you're not going to have a headboard that like leans to one side or slightly warped, that kind of thing. So the frame or carcass of it, make out of good wood. And you might be able to harvest that off of a pallet, but use good wood for the frame or the body of it. And then the decorative part, go nuts. Use pallet wood on it because I think it looks pretty good. It turned out good. Okay, so all I've got left is I've got to drill some holes. Here's a scrap piece of bed frame I used for some other project, but it was sitting in the yard. So that's basically what it looks like and how we're going to mount it. So all those slotted holes there, I've just got to match up a couple on my existing bed frame, drill some holes in the base there, grab some spare bolts out of there, and bolt it up and be done. So I'm going to drill the holes, get it mounted, and kind of show the final thing. All right, well, we're back where we started, and hopefully you noticed something new in the back. So we're done with the headboard. I think it went really well. We just kind of went over, can you do it for free? I sure think so. And hopefully you're inspired by this project because it doesn't have to be a headboard. It could be about anything. So you make a lot of things with scrap wood. So this is just an example of that. So I took the pillows off because the pillows blocked most of the headboard, and I wanted to keep it short because I already had a piece of art on the wall. So that is the final thing. So turned out pretty good, I think. If you enjoyed that, please like, share, subscribe. That really helps the channel out a lot. And I will see you on the next project.